Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Archaon welcomes you to the Chaos Waste. We're going to be taking the Warriors of Chaos up against the Tomb Kings. This is one matchup where Archaon, Lord of the End Times, does thrive pretty well, so let's go ahead and take a look at the army compositions. So, for myself, of course, Archaon's the Lord here. He's got the Crown of Domination to give immunity to psychology and extra leadership in the AoE. Obviously going to be very pertinent against the Tomb King's constructs. We've also got Cascading Fire Cloak and Flaming Sword of Ruin to buff his own weapon damage and give him that fire damage to punch through, Tomb King's Lords. We've also got the Slayer of Kings item, which makes him completely ridiculous in terms of weapon strength. If you stack all of these together, the Flaming Sword of Ruin, Cascading Fire Cloak, and Slayer of Kings, you can get him over 1,000 weapon strength, so we're going to try and do that today. We've got Standard Die as well for that leadership and melee defense buff, and Foe Seeker for the speed and vigor. In terms of the rest of my army composition, it's pretty similar to the game I just showed recently. Instead, though, we've got Chaos Marauders, same as before, 2 Chosen, only 1 spawn this time, and instead 2 units of Chaos Knights with Lances. We've also got the 2 Marauders with Throwing Axes. So let's go ahead and jump straight to my opponent's build. It's a pretty interesting build. He's got these 4 units of Skeleton Horse Archers, which the only thing I can think of these guys are meant to counter on the Tomb King, or on the Chaos roster rather, is, well, Chaos Spawn, I guess, and the Marauders with Throwing Axes obviously will take quite a bit of damage. The missile range on these guys is quite a bit better than the Throwing Axes. Obviously, Throwing Axes only have 70 range. These guys have literally double range at 140, so they could potentially do some damage there, but it looks like right now they're putting their shots into these Chaos Knights with Lances, which is not an optimal target. Tomb King's Skeleton Horse Archers, let's just see their AP stats. I'm just curious. 3 AP, which is actually pretty solid. It's about on par with Illyrian Reavers, so that's more than I thought it was. I was thinking they were more along the lines of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, but that does make this seem a little more worthwhile. Still, the missile block chance and 120 armor is going to mitigate a lot of that damage. In terms of the rest of my opponent's army, he's got a Tomb King up on a Cameron War Sphinx, which was fixed in the last patch, so it shouldn't apply its charge bonus every time. We've also got the Regiment of Renown Sphinx of Uksef, with, of course, that magic damage. It is going to be pertinent against Archaon himself, because he does have that physical resistance, so we're going to have to watch out for this guy. We've got several Tomb Guards with Halberds, looks like 4 mixed in, 3 Skeleton Spearmen scattered up and around as well, and that's it. So let's go ahead and put things into full motion and watch what happens. So I'm going to be kind of coming down the hill, positioning my forces here, and my opponent looks like he's kind of turning to meet me, going to be setting up his line, something like this. You can see these Chaos Knights with Lances are taking quite a bit of fire. I'm just kind of charging them forward here, hurting these Skeleton Horse Archers. I'm just perfectly content as long as they're not shooting at my squishy targets, as long as they're shooting at my more heavily armored targets. I'm perfectly content to let them shoot. And the one thing that the major downside of Skeleton Horse Archers compared to a lot of other skirmish cav is they're pretty slow. They only have 76 speed, which, I mean, is decently fast, but you consider most other skirmish cav are in the 90 range, and you suddenly realize that they're not that great of a skirmish cav unit. But that being said, they do have pretty poor combat stats as well. They're not the worst in the world, about on line with Pistoliers. But speaking of which, Pistoliers did get a buff in the last patch. So I've got a game with them I'm going to be showing you guys shortly. But let's go ahead and grab some cinematic action as we kind of get things underway here. So we're going to be pulling these guys out in the way. My opponent's overcommitting a little bit here, but I'm a little bit late on the reaction. I'm now going to inundate with the Chaos Knights with Lances and try and follow up with Archaon and the Chosen here. My opponent, though, wisely pulling back to his own lines. The Skeleton Horse Archers are finally shooting at my Marauder Horsemen. You can see they've gotten quite a few kills here, so although this may not seem like a great pick on paper, the Marauders with Throwing Axes are a very common pick in this matchup because they're great against Tomb King's constructs. You can see they're also focusing on the Chaos Spawn, another really nice target. But Archaon is getting in here and stacking all these buffs together, so let's go ahead and take a look at his weapon strength. And if you look now, it's at 1,013 weapon strength, which is actually crazy. 333 armor piercing, 680 regular weapon damage, so just insane combat stats. It also puts his melee defense to 114, his attack at 78. And yeah, he's just going crazy right now, and he's going to lay a beating on this Tomb King here. You can see how much damage that one auto attack did. Fortunately, the Sphinx is going to come here and kind of muck things up a little bit. Archaon will take quite a bit of damage from that Sphinx, so I don't want to stay here for too long. Granted, his melee defense is super high right now, so he can probably take 1 or 2 hits, but I don't want to stay there too long, so we're going to immediately just kind of pull away there. We did unleash a Burning Head right down this line of Tomb Guard. Of course, they don't have a whole lot of armor, so we did some major damage, as well as on those Skeleton Spearmen, and definitely going to help the Marauders win in that combat. This unit of Chaos Knights with Lances unfortunately getting caught up by some Tomb Guards with Halberds. My opponent doing a really good job of staying right on top of them. Still a very even fight so far, all things considered. We've been able to do some damage to the Sphinx and the Tomb King here, but not quite enough. The Sphinx has taken some damage, but the thing about this Regiment of Renown Sphinx you have to consider, while fire damage is going to be a very good pick against the Tomb Kings, the Regiment of Renown Sphinx, not the regular one, but the Regiment of Renown does have 25% fire resistance, so something to consider if it's stacked in a big flaming sort of ruin blob. You're not getting the best value, but at this point we're just kind of leading this guy on a goose chase while my guys throw axes at him. You can see the Skeleton Horse Archers, though, are starting to take their toll. My Marauder Horsemen really don't have the leadership. As soon as that Sphinx gets close, they're just going to run away. My opponent, as soon as I drop that Flaming Sword of Ruin, is going to get out of dodge very wisely. These are chosen with that Flaming Sword of Ruin. Extra 25% damage would absolutely tear that Tomb King to shreds, so definitely good to pull away there. Although it's kind of rough because any infantry engagement he chooses to get engaged in, other than the one way out over in the Nether Realm over there, is going to have these Chosen with Halberds inundated on it. So like right now, these guys are in this fight. They are probably going to be doing a ton of damage to my Marauders, probably terror routing off a few units. But these Chosen with Halberds, man, once they start to do those attack animations, they're going to do a lot of damage here. So my opponent is going to have to be pretty aggressive about cycle charging. We've just stuck the Chaos Spawn on his constructs and have been just continuing to try and muck them up. Fortunately, the Chaos Spawn are very low now, and so they're going to be dragged down by the rest of these Tomb Guards here. Rear charge from the Summon du Shabti as well. Going to be routing off a lot of these units in this pocket, but the Chosen, you know, they're definitely still standing in here. We've hit them with that Cascading Fire Cloak to put them up to 81 melee defense. But they are taking some fire. Not the most damage. It is going to do a little bit of damage over time, but we're just trying our best to stay on top of these Tomb King's constructs here. So yeah, so far so good. The Tomb Guards out on the far side that beat up my Chaos Knights did get inundated by some Marauders, so that's pretty nice, but some major fire coming in there. And if my opponent had one Armor Sundering ability, this firing line suddenly becomes a lot scarier. Like if he had the Blessed Legion, for example, suddenly this firing line becomes a lot scarier. That being said, the Blessed Legion is going to be pretty hard to protect. You can see those Skeleton Horsemen have just about used up all their ammo here, and the one unit of Chosen, we did kind of win that engagement over on this side, so we pulled them in here to help deal with the Summon du Shabti. We've still got a few Chaos Knights with Lances roaming around here, going to be bringing in a decisive rear charge against these Tomb Guards here, and very, very cool looking units, but they're going to get punished hardcore by these Chaos Knights with Lances here. We've also got a few of these Marauders. Unfortunately, they've got a little bit of a wonky attack order here, but just kind of maneuvering Archaon out and around. If my opponent chooses to engage, then I just can run back towards these Chosen with Halberds out here, and he is using up the last of his ammunition, shooting at these Chaos Marauders, which is just fine with me. And yeah, these Chaos Marauders, though, out on this flank have performed very, very well, traded very cost-effectively with Tomb Guards. That's one of the reasons why I like Marauders in this matchup, is they'll trade pretty cost-effectively with most of the Tomb King's infantry. So you can see it's kind of just a game of maneuvering at this point. We're pretty far ahead on the balance of power, so the longer my opponent kind of wanders around in this space here, the more I'm able to crumble this pocket of troops here, and the better it's going to be for me. You can see we're bringing in a rear charge with these regrouped Marauders here. Going to be getting some really nice damage done. You can see, though, the Kaiju trains are rolling. That angry Necro Sphinx is going to be coming in here, just getting a massive attack animation with the War Sphinx close behind, but we're immediately going to close the gap with these Chaos Knights with Lances here, just crumple what's left of the Skeleton Spearmen and a lot of these Tomb Guard, and just kind of try and pin these guys in place as much as possible. We've got the Cascading Fire Cloak on Archaon. He's trying to get some hits on this Tomb King here, so we'll go ahead and drop into cinematic mode as we watch Archaon duel it out with this massive beast here. The axe is also coming in for support from the Marauders there. So yeah, Archaon, you know, he has pretty solid combat stats now. 65 defense means that, let's see, the Tomb King has 34 attacks, but not the most attack at the end of the day from the Tomb King. The Hero Titan has a lot, or excuse me, not the Hero Titan, the Necro Sphinx has a lot more, but you can see just too low on health at this point, not enough leadership left. on these units here, so it is going to be a victory for the Warriors of Chaos. A hard-fought victory. My opponent's army, although it may seem a little strange on paper, I actually think was a pretty decent pick. I might change a couple things, but we'll go ahead and talk through some of that towards the end screen here. But yes, just brutality from these constructs before they go down. Man, they are not going to go quietly into this good night, that's for sure. Just battling it out with these Chosen, these other units here. Archaon himself is going to fell the Tomb King, and then next turn his attention over to these Skeleton Horsemen, and yeah, Necrosphinx does crumble, and at that point the rest of the Tomb King's forces are pretty much going to start disintegrating. My opponent did have a Lich Priest Nehekara that I failed to mention earlier. He's carrying a lot of the cheap buff spells, I'd imagine. Yep, just to kind of spam and get that healing as much as possible. But it didn't end up making too big of a difference for him. You can see these Skeleton Horsemen are going to pretty much just crumble and disintegrate and, you know, just fall over at this point. So, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. We'll go ahead and take a look at the end screen breakdown here. So, yeah, pretty well played to my opponent. I do like this list quite a bit. The one thing I might change is it's arguable whether or not this Regiment of Renown is worth it. You might get away with downgrading that guy to the regular Necrosphinx, and then maybe cutting 2 of these Skeleton Horseman archers and getting some bow shopti. Just because then they can pick away at the more high-value single model targets like Archaon. You know, they can pick away at the Chaos Knights. Even the Chosen with halberds, they'll be pretty good at picking away at. But just to give you a little bit more armor-piercing ranged. But I do like the pick of a couple Skeleton Horseman archers just to help counter, you know, Marauders with throwing axes. Although I'd be curious to see. I think Marauders with throwing axes would probably beat Skeleton Horsemen in melee. I'd have to check that, but you'd take a lot of damage coming in, though, from the bows is the only problem. So it's something to think about. The Tomb Guard did fairly well, though. You know, I say that. They kind of got outclassed, and this is the one problem I have with Tomb Guard, is their armor is just a little bit too low. I think they could maybe stand to go up to 70 armor, and it would be okay, but we'll see. In one case, they were able to get some pretty good work done, but for me, Marauders did their job of kind of soaking things up. Not too great with the Chaos Knights with Lances. They got some okay numbers of kills. No XP chevrons, though. Chaos Spawn, again, not too many kills, but the real work coming from those Chosen with halberds, man. It's really tough unit for the Tomb Kings to deal with, unless they bring something like Archaon with Fate of Buna. Yeah, but even then, Archaon's going to have a hard time getting away from Archaon because he can't really bring a monstrous mount. He can bring the chariot mount, but even still, it's not going to be as easily escapable as something like Cambrian War Sphinx, for example. So, bit of give and take. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.